Welcome to the Crown Yourself podcast, where together we build your empire and transform your subconscious stories about what's possible for your business, body, and life. I'm your host, Kimberly Spencer, founder of crownyourself.com, and I'm a master mindset coach, best-selling author, TEDx speaker, known to my clients as a game changer. Each week, you get the conscious leadership strategies you need to help you reign with courage, clarity, and confidence so that you too can make the income and impact you deserve. Imagine this podcast as your royal invitation to step into your full potential and reign in your divine purpose. Your sovereignty starts here, and your reign is now. Hello, and welcome back to the Crown Yourself podcast and to our summer author series. I am so honored and excited to have first-time author Whitney Joy joining us with her masterpiece, 7 Blank Pages. Now, I have had the opportunity of having an early reader copy of this book, and I have to say that it is giving me Elizabeth Gilbert, Glennon Doyle vibes of just the level of vulnerability, storytelling skill set. And Whitney, you're not like, you never trained in this. Like, this is just, you had a heart and a goal to put forth this work into the world. And I think that that's where I really want to start, because there are so many people out there who have a book inside of them and they're not quite letting it out yet.
Yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, the parallels between living it and writing it are uncanny. But I had to surrender, I had to take action, and most importantly, I had to learn. So I started writing it. One of my favorite authors is Paulo Coelho. And what I love about him is the fact he tells stories. You learn a lot. You pick up on what you're meant to, but he tells a story. So that's why I was inspired to just write the story as it was lived and feel through it. And I also realized I didn't know what I was doing. I really, really needed help. This entire process has been incredibly humbling. I'm so grateful for the people that have crossed my path to help this work be what it is today. But I've absolutely hired a team, from a coach to an editor to a publishing consultant. I've learned a ton. It's been an adventure. And I'm really excited for it to be out in the world.
This book is really for, yes, it's about your solo journey of filling those 7 blank pages of your passport. But I think ultimately, any woman who has had a profound identity crisis, or as I call it, the quarter life crisis, your experience, how did your identity crisis really reshape your understanding of self? What were some of the highlights that really helped you navigate this transformation?
Well, when I was 30, I lost husband, house, and job. And at that time, for me, those were the things really defining my identity. Societal characteristics, success, accepted, all of the things that we're raised to go after. When I lost them all, first of all, I tried to fix it. I was in denial. I absolutely wanted to cling to security, cling to the known, and nothing worked. And finally, I stepped back. I was like, I have to reframe this because I'm hitting resistance at every corner. And then I finally got out of my own way. And I was like, this is an opportunity. I'm not a victim here. This is an opportunity to really actually get to know Whitney like I never have before. And for that, I had to completely unplug from everything I knew, everybody I knew, and get quiet enough to actually hear my own intuition, my own voice. So that's when I took off traveling. And then, as you mentioned, I go through quite a bit in the book. But I think most importantly, I learn how to be honest with myself, and I learn how to be vulnerable and also take accountability for areas in my life that went wrong, because I was very much in the deflective mode of this happened to me. It wasn't my fault. And working through those processes all around the world helped me wake up. And again, like, this was just the journey. I didn't end it knowing everything. I didn't end it knowing who I am. It's a constant process. And I also lived this 9 years ago. So there's been a lot of wisdom that's gone into the book that's helped tell the story the way that it was meant to be.
I think a couple points is like, the job was not just like a job. You had a high end luxury, like the fact that, and this is not spoiling too much of the book, but I gotta admit, I'm a little like jelly of the fact that you got to wear the heart of the ocean, like the stone. Oh my, the Titanic has been a movie that has shaped my life and experience. I probably died on it in a past life, like who knows, but the that stone, that story has resonated so much. And the fact that you got to wear it, I'm like, I'm 1 degree away from that stone. And gemstones hold such a beautiful motif throughout the story. And so you had a high-end luxury job, like the pinnacle job that you created. You created that position and then lost that. And then throughout the story, gemstones were this beautiful motif throughout that it deeply resonated with me, a fellow like jewel lover. So what is it about gemstones that you wanted to add that sparkle to the 7 blank pages?
Well, like you said, my job wasn't just a job. I was with them for 10 years and I had 4 positions. It was a family run business. I felt like family. It was an incredible career and I loved it. It was a big part of who I was, but it was my courage. It was my creativity. It was my expression that was separate from my personal life, which was all extreme sports, adrenaline, kind of masculinity, mountain climbing, backcountry skiing. And the balance was really spectacular. But within my career, well, to go back to the beginning, when I was 16, I needed a job and I really was fascinated with gemstones. Where do they come from? How do they form? How do we find them? What's the design that goes behind it? And how do they wield so much power? I mean, why did people fight wars over them or why are they put in crowns? So the energy of the stones spoke to me a lot earlier than I realized it did. And through that journey, I start to connect with that. I start to feel the emotion behind it. I start to see the esoteric song of light and frequency that comes from within a gemstone. And I was able to appreciate it more for what it was. My identity evolved with not having to have attachment to it, not having it define me as well as the career, but then my jewelry represented that in a way. Because they were engagement rings, and I also lost my husband, they also symbolized my marriage and my love. So my relationship with the rings was a big, true story.
Yeah, I think it's such a beautiful, special, and unique piece to your story and your background that makes you and this book so unique, and to any woman who like loves walking into Tiffany's and has found like a home there. Hi. That is it's resonates with those who love luxury, but also those who love backpacking and travel. And like you said, that masculine side of just walking up a mountain. One of the things that I loved that surprised me about the book was by the time I was like 150 pages in, it had only been 6 weeks. And because you experience so much through those first pages. And I don't think I'm giving too much of it away, but there is a definite difference between your experience in France and Switzerland and your experience in Italy. And I'd love to dive in a little bit to what it means to be in flow, because there definitely was this paradoxical dichotomy that you faced between what flow was for you in one space and then what flow was for you in another space. And they looked very different.
It's a wonderful topic because we usually think of flow as easy. And what I think of flow is evolving and creation. And a lot of times in order to evolve, you don't need what's easy, you have the opportunity to break patterns. And I experience flow in France in the beginning as is easy, as like, wow, things are lining up. I'm meeting strangers. I'm getting what I ask for. I'm settling in. There's no resistance. I trust I'm where I'm meant to be, which is an amazing feeling. There were some fun ones because I needed to get to know all sides of me. Like you said, some luxury, some extreme sports. I'm a farm girl. I'd done some traveling, but it's like, it was the first time I'd never been single. So I was figuring out dating. And then flow in Italy changed. I had a lot of roadblocks. I had a lot of questions. I was all of a sudden scared. I was all of a sudden in tough situations, which made me very uncomfortable. But again, the universe said, here's an opportunity to learn. Here's an opportunity to look at what you say you're interested in, but here's a way to live it. Here's a way to practice it. So I was in flow. I just really wasn't aware of it at that time. But you see me struggling at that point until I kind of reframe. I step back and I'm like, we need to mix things up. This clearly it was working to a point, but it's too far in one direction. The pendulum shift went crazy. I need to find my balance back in the middle and be aware enough to change course. And that's okay. So then I kind of redirect with the next couple of countries on the list.
To think of flow as whitewater river rafting in a way. because that's flow. You're just hitting rapids. And actually, it's the fun part of whitewater river rafting because having done it, like when you're floating down like lazy daisy river and it's hot and the sun is beating down on you and there's no rapids, it's like, oh, this is nice. But when you hit those rapids, and that's what it felt like as you were in this beautiful, like nice flowing, and then you hit those rapids when you got to Italy and you made those conscious shifts with your energy and your emotions and you manifested the diplomatic suite, which was phenomenal. And and I love that scene that you paint about what that space was for you and how sitting at that table allowed you to open yourself up to new questions. And so what part of your identity was sitting at an empty table that could was probably used for lots of board meetings that allowed you to step into that boss role of the leader of your life?
I think allowing myself to be angry opened me up to my own power. And a lot of times, I mean, I'm a people pleaser from the Midwest, and there's also nothing wrong with that. I like being a nice person, but I absolutely had suppressed a lot of emotion for a long time. And in that diplomatic suite, I broke. And it at the time didn't feel great. But now I realize that's like a geode. You have to break it open to see the crystal inside. And I was angry. I let myself vent. I let myself cry. I let myself be pissed off instead of justifying it, things or explaining things or trying to hide things. But after that release, when I was able to sit down at the board table, it was the calm kind of after a war where you're like, all right, we let that go. Now what's next? And when you release emotion like that, whatever type it is, you are aware of your own power. You're aware of that potential of, wow, that was all within me. What else am I capable of creating? And that's when I started thinking about those questions of like, what if there was everybody in one room that could make your dreams come true? And now I know now that is just yourself, but still, that table was really profound.
I think what's so resonant about that, and I know a lot of our listeners will resonate deeply with this, is almost that allergy to weakness and where you are so used to being the strong one, especially for those who have experienced trauma in some sort, whether shock trauma or childhood trauma. Like there is a strength that is forged in that and a fear of actually letting those negative emotions, the weaker emotions, or that could be perceived as weak or they are not. They definitely are quite forceful sometimes, but those feelings of full just breakdown and what that means. And where in your journey of writing this book did you have to experience those moments of weakness again? And did it look the same?
Definitely experienced weakness in terms of vulnerability of I'm not good at this. Nobody's going to read this. Imposter syndrome. Why do I think I can do this? I was scared. Am I running from things? Am I running from responsibility? And am I just trying to ignore what I have to face? And writing it, I had to go through a lot of those similar ideas of just like, where does it fit? Does this make sense? I had an innate knowing in both situations that that was the thing to do. I was supposed to leave on that journey and I was supposed to write that book. But any time that you do it, it does get easier. But when it's a big choice, and now it affects my husband and my children, um, other emotions come into play. And like you said, we have all of those emotions for a reason. We're meant to live a
Mhm.
spherical life. We're meant to be happy. We're meant to be sad. Is everything balanced? No, never. But are we supposed to relax and embrace that? Yes, absolutely.
I love that you touched on that because you and I had a similar writing process through our books of like needing to go and get it done and take those moments of alone time that are very sacred, but very hard when you're a mother of young children. Like, because there's all of the societal pressures of the responsibilities and all the things. What allowed you to seek out and receive support and ask for what you needed? Like, what was it, that internal knowing? Was it intuition? Was there a permissiveness? Did you like trick yourself in some way as well as to thinking like this is a necessary thing or align it in to that frequency where you're like, this is my that internal knowing and I have to follow this regardless of what the expectations are around me?
Yeah, a mix of everything. I mean, there was a lot of fear going into this. There was a lot of, oh my goodness. And also vulnerability of like, like telling a true story. There are intimate details in there. How's it's going to look, or who's going to read it? My family, my friends, my husband. But like I said, there was that small voice, that quiet voice that was just like, do it, start. And it reminded me that I have free will. I can change course if I don't want to publish it. I can stop writing if this is taking up too much time and I feel inauthentic that it's taking me away from my children. But what I reminded myself was that every day I have a choice. And every day that decision kind of got stronger and the balance shifted of being like, just keep writing, see what happens. Keep writing. Why not? Keep writing. You'll figure it out. And it did evolve. My purpose evolved from in the beginning, really needing to speak to my younger self, writing a love letter to my kids to just get the story out of me. It evolved to, okay, maybe that there's something here. I love learning through stories. Maybe if this could benefit somebody, is it supposed to be shared? And then it evolved to, yeah, this is going to get out there. We're doing this. It exists. This is real. Let's call somebody like Kimberly and talk about it. And it's grown, but I didn't have this vision when I started, but I did trust that inner knowing of that I just had to try.
Mm. Just wish every woman, man, leader listening would just take those small steps every day to lean into that trust, because that tiny little 5-letter word that guides the journey. And I love that you touch on like the fact that there is so much intimacy in this book and many stories that may make some women clutch their pearls that I love. And yet in the silence, it's like looking at 50 Shades of Grey and how many women were reading that, just like hiding it underneath the covers, because this idea of sexuality and a woman's sexuality is so still limited and shrouded in so much shame. And there is a big belief system that you touch on around deserving and around desire. And what did you discover about yourself around what you deserve and what desire is for you as you went through this journey?
I deserve to figure out what actually was me. What did I like? What turns you on? What excites you? What makes you feel alive? And at the end of the day, I really believe that we're spirits that chose to come down and have a human experience. That is this body, that is touching, that is tasting, that is breathing, that is sexual activity, that is a hug, that is eating. It's everything that this body is capable of doing. And I was just fascinated with it. It's powerful. And it's like, no wonder my spirit wanted to come down here and explore. I want to explore, and granting myself the permission to be curious and the permission to be free to make my own choices was really what unlocked me figuring out where I ended up.
Yeah. And you went on such a wonderful journey with the guide, the mayor, and you're gonna have to read the book, y'all, in order to be with like to read the details of these stories. But I loved how you named these partners throughout your journey that you met on Tanya Tinder, which by the way, Tinder Tanya is just brilliant. But the way that you named and labeled them, maintaining their privacy and integrity, but also being able to leverage the characteristics of that relationship. What what caused you to name them in that way? Because I thought it was so creative how you did that.
Completely authentic. That's how, when, as you know, I did not talk to friends or family during the journey. I needed to unplug. However, when I got home, people would ask me how things went. And that's honestly how I would describe them. I'd be like, oh, what an amazing guy, the mayor. I met him and I ended up staying. And so that was completely authentic. That was real life. And a lot of them I stayed in touch with for a while. And actually, I went back and lived in Paris and dated one. And I would say right now, I'm still not in contact with everybody, but almost all of them. And they're just wonderful human beings. I am so blessed that Tanya, Tinder brought us together. And I absolutely believe that that's part of manifesting is the universe has so many tools to put the right messengers in your path. And Tinder happened to be an incredible one for me on this journey of seeking out the people that I was meant to meet, to learn from and connect with.
Actually, I've heard the horror stories of Tinder. Like Tinder came out after I was happily married, but I've heard the horror stories of Tinder, but I've also heard like amazing love stories coming off of Tinder as well. So I think that there's a beautiful paradox around technology and being able to leverage this asset of technology in order for visibility, for connection and connection to strangers in essence, but that there was one of the things that I loved about that you described in the book is that it wasn't just unconscious. There was a manifestation process with each person that you met that looking back, all of those dots connect as to how they helped you transform and grow into the woman that you are today. As you like beyond the book, I'd love to know, like, did you continue using it with such intentionality? And how did you meet your husband?
Love that question because everything is energy. Everything is energy in some form of another. And like I mentioned, and you mentioned, technology is a tool. My energy was the one making change. My energy was calling in and repelling. And dating apps was just a great tool that the universe was like, okay, this is how you're going out to find it. You're taking action. I'm going to send something your way. And Tinder, I found exactly the kind of guy, the kind of experiences that I was looking for. When I was ready for the next level of relationship, when I had done a lot of personal work on myself and I was actually ready to say the word relationship again, I switched to a different app. I went to Bumble. I'm like, oh, I have a different intention here. Let's see if we can just close that door and open up another one. And then I absolutely attracted a different type of guy because I was a different person. And then the next phase, when I really had dove into my shadow, my limiting beliefs, when I finally was the person that I wanted to date, when I knew what I brought to the table versus what I was looking for, I switched to Hinge. And I met my husband, who's the very first person on Hinge in San Francisco. Absolutely meant to be. And I knew very early on that I was like, this is different. This is real. And it was more importantly because I was ready. My energy was calling that, but the universe used a dating app to bring us together.
I love that. And each time it was a strategic transition. And I think you mentioned facing your shadow. And one of the shadows that I noticed that ran throughout the book is this need for validation. And I've seen that not just in relationships, but with business owners, with entrepreneurs, with leaders of all type, with any influencer who's going out there and putting your work out into the world, that there is that desire, egoic or spiritual for just even impact and legacy of that need for validation and this constant theme of the people pleasing, the needing validation from your ex. What did your journey teach you about the need for validation and what lessons do you feel you're still learning and leaning into as you go into releasing this book into the world?
My journey really was the first time that I turned inward for validation. It was the first time that I learned that I didn't need to find it outside of me. I could tell myself it was okay. I liked me. I did a good job. And then I also learned I didn't even need to say those things. I could just be like, it happened. That's how it was meant to. You got it wrong. That's okay. You don't have to be perfect. So it was absolutely a journey of self acceptance versus external validation. And I'm still going through that. Absolutely, especially being visible for the first time in my life like this, writing a book, putting it out there, talking about it, that vulnerability comes up, the insecurity comes up. And it's a practice. It's something that isn't innate yet for me, but it is a practice that I'm at least aware enough that I can check myself, that I can shake it out, that I can come back to a seat of gratitude and a seat of grace for anything that is to come. And what I learned from external validation that I really don't like is the fact that it gives away all of your power and
Mm.
that I've lived through the journey and writing this was reclaiming my own power. And that doesn't mean forceful, that doesn't mean loud. It just means trust. It means light. It means being with a freedom that comes from being content inside.
Soundbite, like right there. That is a mic drop moment, Whitney. Just the power that you reclaim with not looking outside of you for someone to save you or even say that you're doing okay because you have that internal compass and trust and alignment with your higher consciousness, knowing that you are operating in alignment with your intention or you're not. And that's okay too. And you learn from that as well. And I think the beautiful piece is that it goes back to what you said of that spherical life of that these lessons, they come back in different forms. And I'm curious, is there any one of the lessons that you learned on your journey that actually hasn't come back in a different form, where it has actually like ended in a form of completion, where it's like, oh, I'm done with that belief system? And I equate this to like my own journey with bulimia. Like when I struggled with bulimia for 10 years and I really like, I look at my body and I'm like caterpillar, butterfly, there's no going back. Like that is a differentiation of like who I was. So is there anything that you notice that on that journey, you're like, no, this pattern is done. I broke that curse or generational curse or pattern once and for all. And it hasn't reared its head again because that shadow side is now so illuminated with light.
Say control, and not in the traditional sense, like I want to control what's for dinner or control what I wear, but control of feeling like I have to do it alone. Being like, it's all going to fall on me. I can do it. I can handle it. I will do it by myself. I'll do it perfect. Look at how strong I am, successful, independent. That weight on your shoulders of like, I can control it. I'll do it better than anybody else. And I used to have that. Absolutely. I was the breadwinner in my first marriage. I was an entrepreneur as well as the career that we mentioned, was wanting to do things for family, for friends, just always have it put together, always in control. And that's something that I absolutely have shed, especially with writing the book again. I'm like, I need help. I need a team. This is about more people than me. It is not about a solo journey. And also trusting myself that surrendering control doesn't mean weakness. It means trust in the fact that whatever comes up, I'm capable of handling it. And that's something now I know without a doubt, whatever happens, I'm capable of handling it. And it's basically because I trust myself and I'm not afraid to ask for help. I know that we're not supposed to do it alone.
There is a presence that comes with that because our human need is in this need for certainty. And I see so many leaders struggle with this of dancing that dance between variety and certainty in our human needs. And I think where sourcing certainty as you go through these shadows, as you go through a transformation and an identity crisis and shift like you went through, for me, I've found that that certainty comes the more you look within for that certainty, the more trusting you become versus when you're looking for external results or outcomes to be your certainty. And I think that that's where we get tripped up when we're seeking certainty is when we're looking for the outcome. We can never predict the outcomes. Like no matter how much you want to align things astrologically, like you can't predict the outcomes because they're out of like we are an aspect of the universe, but collectively there are other people involved. And so finding that source of certainty, what are some of the practices that bring you into that place of trust that ground you into your knowingness so that that other leaders, authors, writers, creators can practice to bring that internal compass back in light to come from within rather than looking without?
Meditation. I do a lot of meditation and I love like simple meditations. It doesn't have to be seated, it doesn't have to be with your eyes closed. It's a way of living, feeling activated, feeling connected. That's what I get a lot from meditating. And it's also just play, having fun. And sometimes when I get stressed out or feel that need to control or that uncertainty, I remember that this is supposed to be fun. You know, we are down here. Yes, we have every emotion for a reason, and I'm not sugarcoating things, but we're meant to enjoy life. We can create this as we want to, and that's the magic. So I come back to that magic within, like you mentioned, of remembering joy and remembering that if I need to reset, I kind of go inward and I connect with consciousness.
I love that you brought up play because I think it's one that we can be really reminded of as mothers because it's right in front of our eyes. Like kids are naturally playful and wanting to create. Um, and sometimes as adults, when we get into that space of like, this is a serious thing and this is my legacy and my purpose and my impact, that conscious leadership principle of play gets missed. So how do you play? How did writing this book become a form of play for you?
When I really started to read it, and I was like, that paragraph's good. I like that. This is fun. And even before this call, I was a little bit agitated and anxious and just lots of moving pieces this morning. And I was like, okay, how am I going to ground myself? I'm going to shake this off. I just played some music and danced around for a while, connected to different generations of women in my family, connected to those to come, and just really, again, shook it off. Physically danced, but also consciously connected to whatever is bigger, all of my faith in the unseen, And then I had fun with it. And when we sat down, I'm like, I'm excited. I don't know what's to come, but I'm showing up.
You were dancing. I was dancing with my daughter right before too. We were
Oh
just
my gosh.
dancing. I had the music on, shaking it off like two ladies do. Just being able to have that play. For me, music is such an activator to be in that space of play versus like, let me listen to just the meditative music and like grounded to this solemn place. And I remember when I first started my coaching business, like that very much was like, I thought it had to be very serious because I was in the business of transforming lives. And yes, that is a piece of transformation, but so much more transformation can come from play. Like you see how kids transform so fast, especially as parents, that, and it's coming from they're playing with who they are and with what they want and with how to influence and how to get what they want and how to negotiate, how to sometimes manipulate, how to influence and how to take risks and how to trust their bodies. And it's all coming from that space of play. And I think that we can learn a lot as creators, whether it's in creating businesses or books or stages for other people or for our own conferences, to have and involve more play into our day. And I know you're an adventure junkie and you've climbed over 56 mountains. My gosh. What has mountain climbing and skydiving really brought forth um, for you that allows for that play?
I love feeling my adrenaline. I love feeling my body, my muscles work, my lungs breathe. The fresh air of the mountains is just an entirely different type of church. The energy that you feel summiting a mountain, all of a sudden seeing the view from the other side, it was completely unknown. All of a sudden, when I reached the top, I feel like I better understand where I was because I have this whole new horizon of curiosity and opportunity. But sports for me, I was always kind of underestimated as a kid because I'm a petite person. I'm 5'3", 120 pounds, blonde hair, blue eyes. Everybody's like, yeah, put her in the back of the softball team or let her go last. And so I always really felt like I had something to prove, and that worked well. You know, my ego was handy for a while in my life, and I wouldn't change anything. But from skydiving, I also get surrender because when I decide to go, I'm attached for the ride. I can't make any decision that's going to change my fate. After I jump out of that plane, I'm attached to somebody else. So that was a great balance of like, I am not in control. They're in charge. I'm showing up. I'm feeling everything that I possibly can and just being in the moment. So it's the balance of being physically in my body, but also really embracing all of these different types of experiences to be human.
And I love that you and I are very similar in the fact that we both jumped off of something or out of something after getting divorced. You jumped out of a plane with your ex-husband, by the way, and I jumped off a gigantic ledge, bungee jumping after I got divorced. Not with my ex, though. We weren't speaking at that point. I would love to know, like, you did a lot with him, and there still was a very connected relationship, even though you were going through the divorce. And I love the journey of how that relationship evolved for you throughout the book. But when you were in your first marriage, what were those signs and those intuitive knowings of like, this is no longer right and aligned for me? Because I think so often when something is good, we forego surrendering the good to get to the great.
Absolutely. Leaving something good is a challenge. I mean, no marriage, staying in it or ending it is easy. There's no easy choice. But when things on the surface are great, you're right. It's very hard to see anything that's wrong, especially for a perfectionist. That I was like, no, 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 everything is buttoned up. It's planned. He's the one thing I need. I cannot live without him. That was my choice. That was my decision. That was my front. So things were cracking underneath the surface, but I was also in full denial. I wouldn't see it. I couldn't. It's the love is blind. I know why they say that now. But when it was a small thing for me. It was an undeposited check. All of a sudden, I was indifferent. It was like I turned off. And it was the most harrowing, haunting, scary feeling I've ever had because our relationship was so connected, so full of passion and love. And I'm so grateful for it. But I will never forget that moment. So I was like, I'm not even mad. I don't care. And indifferent is so much worse when there's just no emotion anymore. And that wasn't his fault. I wouldn't say it was my fault either, but it was my lack of being honest with myself, my lack of being willing to be vulnerable, um, that let it be straw that broke the back versus something that could have been changed or addressed. Now, I also believe we're completely where we're meant to be. And as you mentioned, we did go through our divorce as we lived our life. We did it with love and respect because there wasn't any glaring reason for this. We still did. We loved each other. We're each other's best friend for over 10 years. And that doesn't just stop overnight. Our soul contract kept going. Our souls are still connected. I mean, entanglement. We'll never be separate. Quantum physics. That's true for this lifetime and beyond. But
Mm-hmm.
it really was little things that piled up. And then once you open the floodgates, everything else started showing itself, and we really had to face it.
I love that you brought up soul contracts and what that means and how people they are in your life for reasons, seasons, and lifetimes, and those that are in your life for a season, like what a season that can be, and really honoring that it's a beautiful season of evolution and awakening and a catalyst for what that next level of becoming and embodiment is. And as in the book, you just make it so beautifully that that was for you. And I want to pull out a few quotes that just really landed for me throughout the book to just give our listeners just an idea of like the richness of this memoir. Like it is beautiful. One of my favorites was, in order to embody joy, I must also embrace frustration and sadness. And then as a stillness meant stagnation. And then one of my favorites one was a piece of the boss was coming back. And I think especially as a mother, I've felt that countless times with every child, of like that identity of the boss and the woman in charge and the strong woman and all that, that is such an archetype that I love embodying. And there's a softness that comes with motherhood, and I know so many women have struggled with identity crises after motherhood, and they're faced with their shadow. I know I was with my first child, very much so. And I was faced with every fear that I've had in my own self directly in front of me, embodied in this beautiful precious baby, and reconnecting to who I needed to become, not just who I was, but who I needed to become through that, and the deepening of what that became. And I think that there is, do you feel like it is finding fragments of yourself and then repiecing, kind of like that Japanese form of pottery? I forget
Yeah.
what it's called. Yeah, yeah, where it's infused with gold? Or do you find it's actually like more like going back into the kiln and saying, "Okay, I want to become a bigger, beautiful, more spacious vessel," which means you have to go back into the fire each time and become, in order to grow and become more expansive.
For me, it's going back into the fire because I think things are always in motion. And I love that art. I love Kintsugi. It's gorgeous.
Mhm.
But for me personally, like you mentioned, we have people in our lives for a season or reason or a lifetime. We also have sides of ourselves for a season, a reason, or a lifetime. We go through these because we're meant to learn, and they can come back again. I said that in the book of the piece of the boss of me coming back, that was my confidence. That was my voice. That was my backbone. And I needed to put that aside for a little bit to learn about other sides of me, but it needed to come back because it's still a part of me. So that's why I say things would go back into the fire, because it's all the same matter. I am the same person. I'm remembering different aspects. I'm turning up different aspects, but we're constantly in motion, working ourselves into a different piece of art every single day, much less every single decade. But just as much as other people come into our lives, we are different versions of ourselves. Even between your first and second child, you're a different mom because you're a different person.
Yeah, I mean, and going into my third, it was just like, and I was surprised on a physiological level going into having a daughter at versus having two sons, the actual physical changes that were different through the pregnancy and the relationship that I have with her, and versus the two with my boys, and who I became through that and who I'm becoming. It's such a beautiful journey of those aspects. And I think that that is such a gracious way of putting it, is that there are aspects that you are highlighting and illuminating more than having to feel like every aspect of your identity has to be turned up to 10 at all times.
And that's what's helped me the last couple of years sit back and have presence, get down to their level and play, being mom. I didn't focus on writing the book very often. I certainly didn't focus on becoming a thought leader or getting on stage and speaking because the boss, Whitney, was taking a back seat. I'm like, no, it's not my time. That'll come back. And that helped with identity shift afterwards because I knew that I had free will to bring it back at any point. But it was my conscious choice to wake up and be very present with my kids when they were at that stage and that age. And it's another reason why the book is coming out when it is. I didn't finish it earlier. It's ready now because my family's also ready now. And I'm ready to have another side of me come back a little bit. Like it's that variety that makes us who we are. But just because it sat on the shelf for a little bit, it's never gone. And we have soul contracts with our kids, just like we do with the people that we're dating or a stranger on the street, as with ourselves. You know, you have a different relationship with your kids as I do mine because they're all different reasons to be here, things to learn about each other and things to share.
I've worked with some extraordinary coaches, and I know you have as well. And it's just, and still, I always say my kids are my coaches 24/7, and they're the best ones for me because they are so often a mirror of like, oh my gosh, I get to face this shadow of this aspect of me that I wasn't wanting to face, or I get to face this and this ability to be in a dance of influence. And I think that as you're becoming a thought leader and as you're putting your work out into the world, and especially how brave you are in doing this, like as a mom and first time writer, and this is such a beautiful masterpiece. Like you have put so much heart and love into 7 blank pages, and you are influencing thought with the power of the vessel of story without it being like, here is what you should think. This is, you offer in such a beautiful way options. It's like, here is options of perspective and options to have a think on, which I think will provide such a rich discussion for book groups and women to be able to sit in circle, which I know is another one of your motifs that you bring up of this symbology of the circle. And for women to be able to sit in circle and have a discussion of what that pulls forth for them versus what this should be or how I should think. And I think that there's a lot of personal development books out there, which is why I stopped reading for a time personal development books because I was like, I'm tired of being told all the things that I should do and how I should do life versus I'm going to do life in alignment with what I am feeling is true and right for me in this space. And quite frankly, not every is right for you in that time. But I think the beautiful thing about 7 blank pages is that there are so many aspects through story that it bypasses that cognitive dissonance that happens with like, here is a personal development book of like the how-tos of to do life versus here are stories and a beautiful charcuterie board in essence paired with champagne of options of how to pair it and make the stories fit and bring something out and bring an aspect in you forth into the world versus like, here is all the shoulds of what you should be doing, which is, yeah, it's a big difference in the style of read, and I so appreciate how you've written.
Thank you. I really appreciate that because at first I was just like, I'm just going to entertain. It'll be what it is. It's an entertaining story. It's kind of cinematic. But then it was like, wow, I really did evolve a lot. I really discovered a lot during this. And if I lived it, maybe it could help somebody else. But I completely agree with what you said. There's no one book for everybody. There's no one right way to do anything. And how boring would that be if it was the case? So that's why I was like, not everybody's going to like the book. Not everybody's going to like all of it. You know, I surrender to that. But if you do read it and there's a part of it that you're like, oh, I can see myself in that. Or it's an example of just an unknown, a person just like you off the street that went out and lived it. There are so many people standing on the edge of blank. You're on the edge of losing your job. You're on the edge of a relationship that's not healthy. You're on the edge of spending money you've been saving. Whatever it is that we're tiptoeing, that comfort zone. I'm not saying always jump across it, but sometimes, yes. Sometimes we need to break that. We need permission to jump, to surrender, to take action, to change things. Change is inevitable in life. And if this story inspires anybody on the edge to do something, to show up for their life in a way that's authentic to them, then it was a success.
What projects are you most excited about coming up? Like, and how do they align with your evolving mission and the aspects that you're now bringing forth of yourself?
Really excited to have this book out there and hopefully to hear from readers to see how it's changed their life. This is about a community. Like I said, this is not a solo journey. This is about lifting up other voices. And so I would love to see people at conferences and talk about it. I love to go to retreats. I'm very excited for events coming up on the book tour. I have a mentor that's writing the foreword of the book. We'll be doing an event in Bali. I am doing the book tour just like I live life. I'll follow the energy. So, where life takes us, we'll see what's in flow. We'll see where the message has an impact. And that's where I want it to expand. I'm really, really excited to see where this lands. How big can it get? Or again, big is relative. It's not about number of copies sold, it's about impact of somebody coming out to me and saying that was helpful.
Mm. I had the vision of my book of just being able to see people holding it and being able, like, I know it's going to happen, and I'm very, very excited for it, for when it happens to you, of when you catch somebody and you're on a retreat or at a beach somewhere, and suddenly you turn and you're like, oh my gosh, she's reading my book. Like, this stranger is reading something that they're like consuming on a beach that I wrote. Like, that's something that I had a vision when I was at the beach the other week, and I was like, oh my gosh, that is the dream of seeing a stranger read it. And I've had that for you with this book of being able to see you're traveling in Ibiza or somewhere around the world, and you get to turn on a plane and somebody is reading your book. I think that is one of the most majestic moments for an author, beyond like looking at numbers of copies sold. Because for me, numbers never really motivated me. I never was like, I need to hit this number. And I thought that that was one of the shoulds that I had to strip growing as a business owner. It's like, and as an author, it's like, numbers don't mean anything to me. Like, there's no attachment that I had to a certain number of impact, but being able to have those precious moments of feeling. And I know as a manifestor, you manifest from a space of feeling it. And what are those internal representations that you've found are those motivating ones that are really pulling you forward in this vision of what you have for your book and what you want to create with it?
I love how you described it of like seeing the book in the wild. And as you were talking about that, my dream would be walking through an airport and seeing it because so much of the book is about travel. So much of my life has been in airports. It would be an absolute dream to be just walking by and see it. For me, I would like stop and be like, does everybody else see how cool that is? And then I'd probably buy every copy and give them away. But maybe that's an idea in order to manifest seeing it in an airport. Maybe I should bring some copies with me whenever I'm traveling and just give them away in the airport and see what happens. It's a good feeling of excitement and emotion connected to the manifestation of acceptance, of inspiration, but balanced with action. If I want to see it that way, I can do something to make it happen first. So maybe I start by giving them away in the atmosphere that I want to call them.
Mm. Now, I love that it's called Seven Blank Pages, and they are about the blank pages in your passport. I'm curious, because I got the digital copy and an early reader copy. Will there be seven blank pages in the book?
Hmm. It's a wonderful question. That's unknown right now. I think it's a wonderful idea, though.
Because I saw the possibility of stamps and some stamps on the book
There you
or
go.
signature.
There you go. There is a blank page right on the cover. It
Blank
is
page.
white against professional advice. It is white. I know that is not the most successful color to choose for a book. There's obviously things on it, but the page is blank because the title is Seven Blank Pages. So the background at least is white.
I love that. And I think that is such a testament to following your soul's knowing of like what you feel is right for this piece of work. Because I mean, coming out with a book is not easy. I know I speak from experience, and there are so many opinions of all the things you can do and all the things you should do and all the shoulds of all the things and all the things. And while I'm all for like crowdsourcing opinions and gathering opinions from the audience as far as the cover design goes, which is a huge piece of the puzzle of the book, at the same time, there is a knowingness of like, this is what feels right for me. So, how did you come upon what that cover design? Because I know you've gone through several iterations. How did you come up with why white? Why did you choose that? And why did you just lean into what you wanted versus professional advice?
Well, I dove in. Like you said, I went through a lot of different options. I dove in, I talked to different experts. I really listened because I wanted to respect the work. And ultimately, it was, is this marketing? Is this for the work? Or is this design? Is this personal? And there's different intentions behind both. I really wanted to get behind the fact that this is marketing. I couldn't do it. I had enough resistance. I was struggling. I was just grasping at straws, designing way too many different things when I knew in my heart I saw this blank page because that symbolizes the blank pages. And I wanted people to see opportunity in that. I wanted them to see what's possible when something is unknown. And then in the title, you'll see when you get your copy of the book, there's actually a view of me skydiving, the view jumping down. So there's magic hidden within the title. So it's magic within the seven blank pages. And to me, that just the energy around it was what can carry the message because it's part of the message. So that alignment trumped the marketing, which completely made sense. And trust me, I tried listening to it. And I have in other situations, I've gone the other way, but with the cover, I had to trust my intuition on this. And I deeply connect with it and its simplicity and its meaning. And I have to trust that. That's what the story wanted.
I think that that is something to just lean into with strategy in general, and it's something I work with a lot of leaders on, of like looking at what are those, and I know you and I have had discussions of like what are those things of all the shoulds that are the things that people say you should be doing, and then what are those things that your soul actually knows. And I gave the example in a past podcast of a client of mine who was doing all of these summits, and because she had taken a course on list building, and that was what the marketer was saying is like, this is how you build your list and build your business. And it's just, I asked her quite frankly, I said, do you like attending them? And she was like, no, I sign up for them. I don't show up for them. I said, well, that's who you're attracting because like attracts like. And I think that's such a piece of marketing, that when it comes to marketing your book and putting the work out there, whether it's a cover design or showing up on podcasts like this, like looking at what are those things that you enjoy about visibility, that that pull something forward in you versus, and I'm not saying like that every aspect of it has to be enjoyed. Like not everybody has a delightful relationship with social media. I know you and I have had several conversations on that. But at the same time, it's like when we can look at it from a relational standpoint of what is this gonna, how can this be a relational dance versus the have tos and the shoulds of, or comparing ourselves to how everybody else is doing it. And what are those new ways that you are pioneering, that you're excited about in the marketing of this book, that is different than other authors or what other people have done or what other people have said you should do?
I think the book tour is a great example of that. And I have a background in events. So I was very excited to be like, yes, I can throw parties. I am an experienced strategist. Like I've spent years designing atmospheres that really build relationship, authentic connection, whether it's from jewelry or extreme sports or executives at enterprise companies driving change. That's one of my specialties. I was really excited to be like, I get to do my own book tour. What an amazing opportunity. How lucky am I? And I started reading, of course, oh, how do you do it? Literary world is not my expertise. So I see what works for other people, what's expected. And I lined it all out. I was starting and I was just kind of like the book cover, beating my head against the wall, being like, there's something not in alignment. It's not flow. Personally, resisting following through on making commitments. And then I stepped outside of myself and I was like, why? And you said it. You were like, well, you don't really do many things traditionally. Why do you have to do a book tour traditionally? And I was able to get out of my own way and like, you're right. Like I don't have an established crowd that's waiting to read it. A lot of times writers do that. And that's why you go on a book tour because there are people excited to meet with you. They've already read the book. They know your work. I need to do the work on that side in terms of audience expansion and getting my message out there before the events can really make an impact. And that was the misalignment. I was just excited to go out and talk to people, but we're not there yet. The book is ready, but I need to do my part to get the message out there to then design those events. And like I said, I'm going to go where the energy goes. So where we're traveling, or where if I get invited to something, somebody's reading the book, they're inspired, they invite me to do something, I have faith that the opportunities will arise and I will have permission to go and take action on them when they do. And so designing my book tour that way, it's going to be exciting. I'm not exactly sure where we'll go yet, but we do have, like I mentioned, Bali, that's on there. Austin is the kickoff party. I'm going to New
Hmm.
York, filming with a character from the book. So really exciting, unique events are coming up, but nothing is being forced. And like I mentioned, I love the idea of handing out books in the airport. I think that that's a fantastic idea. And we could do something like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, where I can gift it to somebody, take a picture, share it on social, write your name in it. When you're done with it, please give it away, give it to the next person, see where the books end up. The books themselves can travel just like I did to fill my passport pages. And I would love to hear opinions from people that read it that way and to see what it inspires as it travels around the world.
I think that's one of the beautiful things about books, because for me, books are like so sacred, and I love because they hold a part of me in them. And one of the things that I loved when my grandma passed away is I got to open up several of my books, and I never met my great grandfather, but I inherited a lot of old, old books. And I got to open them up and see his signature and the date and when he read them. And I thought that that was such a special moment of connection of like, oh, this was a moment. And I got to see the underlinings in some of the books. And I thought, for me, my books when I read them, they're underlined, highlighted, starred, like it's like serial killer notes inside of it. But when I give a book away, because I put so much personal energy into consuming and building a relationship with the work of art, when I give it away, I'm like, you are reading part of me as well as the author. And one of the things that I loved was when I read Brenda Burchard's Life's Golden Ticket. And it was after my father had passed away. And I didn't realize that my dad had read that book right before he had gotten sober. And it was actually in the journey of his sobriety. And there were notes that he put of his commitments to himself that he ended up keeping in those last few years of his life that were so precious to me. And I think it built a greater connection. And I share this to say, like, I'm so excited to see where those books go and the hands and lives that they touch and the imprints of what people write inside of them. So if you are blessed to receive one of these copies, like please get one for yourself and then share it with others and let people see your transformation and how this book what lands for you, and let it build a relationship with others, because that's one of the beautiful themes of this book anyways, is that ability to give something away and to let relationships be for the season or the reason. And maybe that reason is for someone to see, wow, this moment in this story really not only impacted me, but it impacted this other person. And I'm not alone in this journey of transformation. I'm not alone in this identity crisis. Even though I may be walking this path solo, others have trod it in their own way. We are linking arms together through the words on the page.
Well, and what an honor it would be to be an author that has that impact on people. I think that's why we write books, is to connect community. And you put it beautifully. And what an amazing example with your father. That's just that's what makes it transforms words from just something on paper to emotions that we feel. And that's what connects us as humans.
Amen. So I'd love to shift gears into a little bit of rapid fire, Whitney. Are you ready?
Absolutely.
I think, though, in a way, it's a little cheating because I know you've listened to the podcast. So, like, you know what the rapid fire questions are. I
Yeah.
feel like I should change them up at some point.
Mix it up. It's all winging it.
All right. So, who is your favorite female character in a book or a movie and why?
Female character. Oh, we'll go with Erin Brockovich because she was bold, she was smart, she was courageous.
Great one. If you could embody any person living or alive in their time, who would you choose to live their life and see through their eyes just for one day?
Cleopatra. That would have been phenomenal to be Cleopatra. She was such a scholar. She was in the middle of so much action. Just a incredible, incredible person.
I love that answer. And especially like what day in Cleopatra's life? Like would it be like the day Julius Caesar came in, or Mark Antony, or making a day in the life of an average day of what it was like in Cleopatra? Like, what a day. What is your relationship with money and how is it transformed?
Really do believe in the law of abundance. I believe that there's more than enough money to go around. And I think that you can attract it to you. And I've gone through bankruptcy. I've had no money in my account more than once. I've also made more than I expected. It is a flow for me, but it's also working because I don't hold too tight.
What are your daily or ritualistic practices around money?
Ritualistic practices.
Even if that's like meeting with your accountant once a month.
I think just always being grateful. Always being grateful that I have it is the only regular thing that I have. And that's even grocery shopping. If I can get the produce that I want without having to pay attention to the cost. And sometimes I have. Sometimes I've had to count toothpicks or Q-tips. I've been on all sides of it, but I'm very grateful when I can just get what feels like it'll nourish my family.
I love that. And what do you define to be your queendom?
Freedom, freedom, anywhere that I am. I feel happy and free inside, and that I'm able to go anywhere, talk to anyone. The opportunity and the freedom that we have just lets me be the sovereign of my own story.
If you were to give our audience one practice that you do on a regular basis that has transformed your life, big or small, what would that practice be?
It would be to create your own 1 minute meditation that connects up to the stars with light and wisdom of the universe and the cosmos. Feel that light going through you and then connect down into the earth. Everything that makes us organic connects us to our foundation, our ambition, our passion. And if you take 1 minute to connect up and to connect down and realize we are right in the middle for a reason, that could change your life.
Love that practice. That's beautiful. And lastly, Whitney, how do you crown yourself?
Right now, a good night's sleep.
Oh, Mama, I feel you on that.
Right now, it is a glass of wine after a long day and a good night's sleep. And I feel like I am on the best throne in the world.
Amen. Whitney, I am so excited for your book to come out. I am so excited for our readers, our listeners, just so many travelers who are pioneering their own journey and on the edge of making a choice that will change their lives or evolve them in some way. I'm so excited for them to get a copy of 7 Blank Pages. So where do we go to buy this?
The single source of truth for all things is whitneyjoy.com. You can listen to podcasts there. You can find information on the book. You can join the newsletter, and the book will be available on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. It will be printed on demand.
Amazing. Whitney, it has been such a pleasure just experiencing this journey with you. And not only through just our work together, but just being able to see this book come to life and get into the hands of so many readers who need to hear it and experience it and embody the stories that are there and our own full potential to sit and be with that edge of the next thing and our next evolution. As always, my fellow sovereigns, own your throne, mind your business, because your reign is now.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. If what you heard resonated with you, be sure to subscribe and start creating a bigger impact now by sharing this with a friend. Just by doing that one simple act of kindness, you are creating a royal ripple to support more people in their sovereignty. And if you're not already following on social media, connect with me everywhere at crownyourself.now for more inspiration. I am so excited to connect with you in the next episode. And in the meantime, go out there and create a body, business, and life that rules. Because today, you crown yourself.